Okay, so apparently we're just going to do like all of the all of the technical issues. We wound up being a couple minutes late because of a couple little misconfigurations. I forgot that I had my microphone still on mute. Now I think we're good, and now I think I can say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you happen to be. My name is Christopher Harrison. This is Web Wednesday, the show where we bring on some really fantastic people to talk about some really neat things web related. Now, in the past, we actually had Ayşegül come on to talk about kind of like all things MR, XR, AR, like all the Rs, all the different realities and so forth. And it was a really fascinating conversation, seeing how you could use JavaScript to get in and do all of those different things. And so, kind of left that conversation really wide-eyed and going, wow, this is amazing. I want to learn more, and hopefully you all do as well. And so I asked Ayşegül if she'd be willing to come back, and here she is. And today she's here to talk about doing cool things with the voice assistant. I know that she's going to be breaking out her HoloLens, and right now we're getting a black camera from Ayşegül. I don't know if there's this little safety filter on there or not.
Interesting. I do see myself.
Huh.
Yeah, Matt's
weird.
Able to see.
That is so funny. Okay, it could, we also have a producer behind the scenes, and he's saying that he can see. We're just gonna have all of the issues here. That is so funny. If somebody else can just look real quick and just make sure that she's coming through, that'd be fantastic. But in the meantime, I guess we could go ahead and start talking. So Ayşegül, thank you again for coming back. How have you been lately?
Thank you for having me. It's been a while. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Good. Even if I can't see you at the moment, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and sort of get right on into it and sort of start digging into all of these different technologies and so forth. And I know one of the ones that you're going to be taking a look at is this little thing called WebXR. And so I guess that really kind of begs the question right away, which is, what is WebXR?
Oh, that's a great question. I hope it's small for now, but I hope it's going to be the thing in the future and everyone is building with, especially web developers. So WebXR is a device APIs that allows you to have access to all of the sensors that helps you to create an immersive experience. For example, like the position of your head, and you're standing or standing up, all of those things are sensitive data, and WebXR Device APIs allow you to have access to them in a safe and secure way.
Okay. So then, like, there isn't going to be some, like, I don't necessarily then have to worry. There we go. Now I have a camera. So weird. But you mentioned like a safe and secure way. So this is going to be one of those, like, similar to like when I connect to a meeting through my browser, that it's going to prompt me and go, hey, do you want to allow the camera? Do you want to allow the microphone? Then the same thing for
Yes.
reality. Okay.
As we experienced before, there's a lot of data that we give away and we don't really realize. And for most of the devices like Android or Oculus Quest from Meta, all of those devices have access to it and there's no control over it. But W3C is Worldwide Web Consortium, which I'm one of the chairs for Immersive Web. So we make sure that we create a spec, we make sure that your data doesn't leave and it's always secure for you. For example, everything can be considered a biological data. If you are missing a finger, for example, if you are not able to walk, all of these data should not be in the hands of the developers. Developers still can do a lot of stuff for everybody.
Okay. All right. Very cool. And I can do all of that then just by using my JavaScript skills or my TypeScript skills.
Exactly. Yes. Um, there's a got you right now. Let me give you the bad news too. Because we are very careful, W3C, a lot of organizations, a lot of different companies, and the community come together to decide like how these things are going to work in the future. So it is progressing much slower than the devices. If you are an Android developer or iOS developer or VR or AR headsets, you have a lot more capabilities, features, but they're all going to be on come to WebXR one day, soon, hopefully. Um, yeah, I think web is the future,
I, I,
as always.
I would certainly agree with that. I can never remember the person who runs coding horror, but once said that anything that can be written in JavaScript will be written in JavaScript, and I definitely think that there's a lot of truth to that. Code with Sean, who is a viewer of the show and also just a fantastic person, who, by the way, I really do need to get him online as well at some point and chat with him. But he said that, the internet's probably just a fad. It probably won't actually stick.
I know, right? And I heard web is dead for a long time, but it stopped. Now we accept the fact that it's not dying all the time.
Perfect. And the big thing that I know you're here to talk about today is voice assistant. So I guess like my first question really would be around like how are you going to capture that voice? Like how do you process that? And then I guess my next question then from there is how do you then go like speech to text and then natural language processing or NLP from there? So like how does that process kind of at a high level wind up working then?
Oh, that's a great question. We do ask for the access to the microphone, and you always have to ask. Also with WebXR, you always have to ask if the user wants to go into an immersive experience. But I also have actually speech sample that I can show you. It's just on the browser. So here we have the code sample, and we can transcribe it and translate it in multiple languages at the same time. So I'm going to click and start talking, and we'll have the transcription and translation at the same time. I think this is really cool. So basically, for WebXR, we are doing exactly the same thing. We are reaching to the microphone, but in this case, we are just transcribing and translating to be able to create, use any comments as a feature on WebXR. We have to train the data, and I will show you how we do that too. And it's still going on.
So one thing I noticed real quick about that speech to text is it seems to change the text as it gets a bit more context. Like a perfect example of it was you had used the word for, and it initially put in the number 4, and then you kept talking, and then it was obviously supposed to be FOR. And so once it got that additional context, it went back and readjusted that. So is that something that it winds up doing? Just like it keeps listening to figure out, oh, okay, this is what the person meant to try and address like homonyms and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for noticing that. But this is still happening in real time, and we are making a call to the API. So this is not happening in my local environment. There's another way of having the transcription. If you record the whole thing and then send the transcription to be send the voice recording to be transcribed, then with the batch you can get much better quality, and but it won't be at the same time.
Okay.
It won't be real time.
By the way, Sean also called this out, but it's great to see that you've got Klingon on there as one of the languages. That's fantastic. I'm also like it's remarkable how accurate that is. Like, obviously it's not perfect because nothing ever is, but it's remarkable how accurate that transcription is.
It is, yeah. It is very impressive. I'm a native Turkish speaker, and I tried Turkish, well, the second language is there, to test it because that's my best way for me to test it. And Turkish is very different than English, and it's not a Latin language, and it's still doing a very good job. And it's just really nice. I
That's
wonder if
so
anybody is
cool.
able to read the Klingon. It looks very interesting.
I do not speak Klingon.
Yeah, we have almost 100 languages that you can translate and transcribe.
That's cool, and all of that's being done through cognitive services.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have the link to this on. Okay, I'll just open it here. This is GitHub YONET. This is my account, but we also have AI advocacy team, and this is the Azure Speech React sample. And if you want to watch the video of me talking about it, it's there too.
Perfect. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, just want to show you like how cool this is in every environment, in mixed reality.
Okay.
But since the last time I was here, although I didn't talk about speech last time, one thing that happened is our portal improved very much. I think it was in beta at the time. So now you can go to the Speech Studio and start playing with speech services, which is really, really nice. So real-time speech to text, which we did custom speech, which is really interesting. So we are using some different vocabulary than what most people won't be talking about, like WebXR, HoloLens. And if you have any specific language or words, that vocabulary that you want to add to this translation, you can do that with custom speech.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that could be useful for, I'm guessing, like medical terminology or like other like domain specific. So like, obviously we here in tech, we've got, we try to pronounce everything, even if it's not actually pronounceable, the letters being shoved together. So I'm guessing then that something like that would be perfect for custom speech.
Exactly. Anytime regular, speech is not satisfying your needs, first you should give it a try. So this is a good opportunity to try. So I think, okay, I'm going to press this, and it's doing exactly the same thing. First thing you should do, if you're thinking about using it, come to Speech Studio and start trying things out and see for yourself. That makes your decision much easier on how to develop it, or if it's fitting your needs. And this is what the API would get at the end of it. So it's listening me here. And at the end, what you're getting is the text, offset, duration, and ID. So you can put these together to create a transcription service, basically.
Okay. That's very cool, and I noticed that it also has like its confidence scores in there as well.
Yeah.
So, do you happen to know like what do you happen to know like what was used to train that up?
So we definitely are not using any customer data for this.
Right, of course.
Yes, because that's not the case everywhere. So I think it's very important, and I know we are purchasing our all of the data that we are using.
Okay.
And we have something like that is called also custom voice, which you can train your own voice or anybody who's your representative, and then that person can speak multiple languages, which is really, really cool. And then you can create audio content. And we even have things like this. So you can read it and then you get a score. But this is my last score. You can see what's going on here. And the
Okay.
code samples are here. I think this is a great place to explore first and see what you can do with speech services.
And so, and there's an SDK for that, and I can just call that like a normal like REST endpoint as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And you can even do your custom training here. Well, you did see. So this is one of the ones that I started. So one thing that I want to do is be able to say, like, change the color of an object. And I can just add all of the possible terminology that my users might say, and train your data and then test it. And if you don't think that this is good enough, you can keep adding new sentences to make sure that every use case is covered. And the really cool thing about it is that you don't have to be a developer, right? I mean, this language part is very different than being a developer. So anyone can actually do this part and then publish it, deploy it, and you will be using the endpoint.
Okay. So I can actually have then just like, subject matter experts or like business users go in and do that. Okay.
How cool is that? I mean, normally you would have to go to a staging environment, they test it, and then you retrain it. It's just a long process, but everything is much easier here.
That is very cool. I dig that.
Yeah.
I dig that. Okay.
And let's see. So those are the things that we are going to use. I think speech is especially important for mixed reality experiences because the objects are not always in your reach. So we are working on the real world, right? I can actually describe what I'm talking about, which is augmented reality, which is when we add 3D images on top of real world. We have the limitations that we don't have on web or mobile, which is you have things around you. And sometimes I'm trying to press a button, but my microphone is there. So I'm pressing on my microphone and it's not happening. So because of that, and to make it more accessible to everybody, of course, it's very important to have a different way of interacting also. And voice is perfect for it.
I would definitely agree. And I will also say, so like one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is I spent an awful lot of time working on chatbots. And so like one of the biggest things that we would hear when we were talking with customers is about whether or not they wanted to add in speech. And at the time, my advice was typically don't add in speech. And part of it was because, in a lot of scenarios, speech isn't necessarily actually what you want. But the other thing is like, it at that time, and again, this was like three and a half years ago now, the speech services were still like trying to get there. But I have to say, like, even in this little bit of time, that little bit that you've shown me, I was like, it looks like it's definitely come a long way, and that adding in speech is definitely something that people should be considering a lot more. So you've definitely like won me over to that side already.
Yeah, I mean, you're always busy, you have things to do, it's really nice to be able to interact with things with your voice when you're not around. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is an option. Like, you should never give only one option to your users. That's not a very good thing because you might have, visual impair or hearing issues. Could be. It's always nice to give multiple options and see what your users are using and what they're choosing.
That's such a fantastic point. Yeah, making sure that it's accessible by giving multiple ways to interact. Yeah, that's such a fantastic point.
And with this custom keywords too, you could do things like "Hey Cortana" or "Hey Google," Alexa. All of these are the keywords that you can train. My Google Home.
You didn't activate my phone because I'm hearing you through this, so my phone was safe.
That's great. So you can create an app, your own assistance app, and have a chatbot at the same time too. And you can use a specific keyword. Let's say, "Hey, Web Wednesday." Could be yours. So all you do is create a new resource, and then you can create a resource here, but you have to have a already Azure subscription, and then you can add your wording here, test it, and tune your models too, which is really
Okay. Cool. I dig it.
cool. And most of the links are here, and I will talk about the start from the beginning a little bit. Don't want to spend more time than you need to, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anytime.
I think on the question front, we're good at the moment. The one question that I would have is, how do you what does the code actually look like if you happen to have something handy? What does the code actually look like to send up the voice into cognitive services?
I'm glad you asked.
Thank you.
Have you used code spaces?
Oh, I love code spaces. J'adore code spaces.
Yeah, it is really nice actually. So I wanted to open it there, but I think I do have it here too. Oh yeah. Oh no. Stop. Yeah. So we are using. I mean, I'm using the SDKs because it's a much faster way to develop. So we have a React app here, and what we are doing is these are the languages I'm giving. Not very important. What's important is that we have a token that we get from creating the Azure resource. And we have an environment folder, which I'm not going to show again. And so we put our keys there. And I have a utility function here, which helps me to save my token as a storage. The correct term is missing. So basically, we are making an API call to speech token, and then we are saving that to our local storage.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do have. I mean, I have one server. You could use functions for this as well, and this is the call that we are making, and then we can define the course and check if our speech key and region all are there.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. And if we go back to our app, what we are doing is checking the token, and then we have a callback function for a microphone. So in the app, if you notice, there are two options. This one, you can either give a file or speak. It's still going on. So we have these callback functions defined for that, and the standard part of doing the speech is creating a speech configuration. So here we are saying speech translation configuration, but you could also just do transcription configuration. So we have multiple choices here, and you can do. This is doing two things at the same time, but you can do just one. So this is important, especially for budget purposes, for example. If you're both transcribing and translating, it's going to cost you much more than if you're just transcribing.
Right.
Yeah. And the methods look pretty much alike. And in this case, I gave a language, English, but you can also set it up to just detect the language, which is
Okay.
yeah, cool too. And then I have the target languages options, and then we add those target languages that we are going to translate. And we have one audio config that is taking the microphone data. That is also important. And once we have that, we initialize a new speech SDK translation object, recognizer object, and give the audio config and speech config. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Afterward, we have the event recognizing events, and we subscribe to that, and then depending on the results, translate the text, or if we have an error, we display that, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and in this part, as you can see, what we are getting back is an event, and the results translation has different languages, and then you can just select the ones that you were interested in afterwards and display it, basically. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. So all that's like a lot of that feels like pretty stock standard. That I've got an SDK. I'm going to be using the microphone, and I'm just going to go ahead and call that like I would. So that seems pretty standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just you don't have to think about most of the details. Like audio configuration is an important one. There are lots of different audio formats which I have no idea about. So SDK is taking care of most of the stuff and taking care of your making it easy for you to make a call to the backend APIs.
Okay. Along those lines, like with the audio formats, it sounds then like it's pretty robust as to what it is that it's able to decode as far as audio formats go.
Yeah, and just wanted to say it again, like how fast is this? I mean, it's so crazy to me because we are also displaying a lot of different text here, right? And I mean, we are doing a live stream, and then the internet. This is going through the internet, going somewhere and coming back to me, which is blows my mind.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool, and it's doing it all live, and it's doing a pretty decent job of it.
Yes. The cool thing is you can also run these services in a container in your local environment. If you have, for example, medical data, if you're talking to your doctor, if you're in a hospital, you might not want your conversation with your doctor to leave the premises. So in those cases, you can just run the same services as they are in a container in your local environment, which is really nice.
That's really nice. So I just download the container from Cognitive Services, and then I just run that like a normal container?
Yes. We do have a form that you have to fill most of the time, and the purpose is security. So some of the services are a little bit more sensitive. For example, we have speaker recognition, or we are able to, have a custom voice. So, for example, if I train my voice,
right.
And you might be able to use my voice. So we want to make sure that all of those cases are covered. You explain your purpose, and that's a binding contract between you and Azure services. And if you don't use it ethically, then you might lose your opportunity to use it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's honestly that's reassuring to know that that's there. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and in terms of the custom speech, actually, there's another really cool thing. We all have our voices everywhere now, and you can't just go and train anybody's voice because we require you to say a very specific phrase, stating that I'm aware this is being used to generate my voice. And if you don't have that, we can't train your data, basically.
Okay, that's honestly also really nice to know. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, our voices are everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, I'm glad. But one thing to make sure is, like, when I wanted to do a demo, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do everything. Right? And some of the services are not available in every region, and you have to make sure that you check them. Or not all of the services are available in a container.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
most of them are.
Okay, cool. Now, I also know that you're able to connect this up to a device as well.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work? How would I say use a HoloLens, or how would I use an Oculus and start to be able to integrate voice and start to do things in that?
You actually do exactly the same thing as you would do for a web. So if I opened up, I have multiple different ways of creating WebXR kind of stuff, but we talked about some of these last time I was here, but I can go through them slightly. And we create exactly the same services. Babylon.js. Uh-oh. I might have not saved, or let me refresh this. Okay, so this is where we start in our local environment. So there are ways to try out with Babylon.js in other places, like Playground. But if you want to, do it in your local environment, please start from here. And I don't like starting from scratch ever. Templates are there for a reason. And the code sample that we have here is linked on this page as well, which is
Okay.
also called Wednesday Babylon on AI Advocates GitHub. And this specific project started from Babylon.js Webpack sample by one of the contributors. And in this video, if anyone interested, I'm going through the whole thing and how to think about creating immersive experiences, because I feel like as web developers, we are all going to end up creating immersive experiences at some point. And they are, there's more things to worry about, basically. Your environments, you have no idea, if it's a website, you have two dimensions, right, that you have to worry about. With creating things in the real life, everything gets much more complicated. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, along those lines, how do you start to comprehend that? If this is your first time trying to work in that in that 3D space, that old mug of CSS is awesome, and that not lining up, that's sort of sometimes how I feel when I'm just on two dimensions. Adding in that third dimension, how do you start to visualize and approach that?
Yeah, it is very very hard problem to solve. I know there are some companies like Unity, they're working on testing tools. So basically what you can do is create different environments, right? So this is my room, but you can create your room and test it for you in your room, basically. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Let me actually show you how that looks in the HoloLens, and maybe that might.
Yeah. And it's also just a good excuse to get the HoloLens out. I've yet to actually put on a HoloLens. I've actually never had that opportunity.
Yeah, because before the pandemic, it was hardly out, and there wasn't many opportunities to see it. But I did bring it to our conference in February 2 years ago. So and look, even here, there's so much to think about. Menu, where do you put the menu? So one thing that HoloLens team did is put the menu in your wrist. Can you see it?
Okay. So you're tapping your wrist then?
Yeah.
Okay.
To reach the menu. That way, the menu is with you all the time. Because what happens with the holograms is that you can actually lose your holograms. So basically, wherever you put things, they stay there. And then sometimes you walk around, there's all these different holograms all around. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
This is my friend Dan. We were talking about how to make it easy for people to understand. And yeah, we came out with this app. It's fun. Let me see. Sometimes one of the things that happens, sorry, I'm moving too much, must be dizzying for you. One of the things that happens is that sometimes the app is behind you and you are not sure. Let me see.
You know, that's one of those things so I'm not one of those that will open up multiple, like a whole bunch of browser tabs on one browser. I will open up like 8 browsers and have like 5 tabs on each one. And then that way I can just never find anything because I can't figure out which browser tab combination. So I guess this is sort of that same thing of like, now the app that I was using is somewhere behind me.
I know, yeah. And then it makes your device a little bit slower too if you have lots of holograms lying around. For some reason, it's decided not to work. Yeah. I'll try it one more time. And open another app too. Let's see what happens. Do we have any HoloLens developers today?
I'm not sure yet. We had one small issue in trying to broadcast out to like Learn TV, which is where a lot of people had gone. So there's the viewership isn't quite as fantastic as I would have hoped because of like that little issue. But the handful of people that have commented are digging the seeing the 3D model and everything else. So yeah.
So this is one of our new products, Mesh. So this allows you to have one thing, and then you can talk to your coworkers looking at the same thing. Unfortunately, I'm the only one right now, but this is the table if you can see it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
You can put stuff on this table, and then like you would see the same thing wherever you are. Oh, I didn't see. So you see, we have a menu here too. So like, look, there's all kinds of different surfaces, and this is really hard to make really accessible for everybody and really useful for everybody.
Yeah, because I mean, like you're having to do an awful lot. Like you've got a lot of motion that's going on. You've got a lot of just like manual, like finger dexterity and so forth. That's in action there. So you've got quite a bit that you're moving around to do that. So yeah, I can definitely see how accessibility then becomes a challenge.
Yeah, and if I'm doing this on my desk in the office, I should still be able to use it without having any issues, right? I should be able to build it without having to move a lot. So yeah, there are lots of challenges. We are trying to come up with good guidelines, but we are all going to mess it up and figure it out together, I think.
Which is true certainly for any new technology. Now, everything that you showed there, is that something that you could then do with Babylon.js?
So you can do hand gestures with Babylon.js. You can create and you can put things in a place, which means that next time I come in, I can find the same thing on my desk. I can have sticky notes for myself, for example, and only I would see, which is really nice. One thing that Web doesn't have is that with HoloLens, we have this thing called cloud anchors, which means that this whole information is saved in the cloud, saved on your device basically, and then we map it to cloud. That means that multiple people can see the same thing, can share it in multiple devices.
Interesting.
Yeah, but with Babylon.js, it is saved only in the session, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I want the full functionality, then I'm going to be using C# or basically to follow up with the question from Bracco Dev, who by the way mentions that they've missed learning things from you, but they mention what technologies can you use to develop for HoloLens?
Oh, great. Well, Unity is one tool, which is C#, but also it's a very visual tool. And we have this thing called like little components, basically, that makes it very easy to develop. So you could just have some checkboxes and click on them. So you would have spatial understanding, which means that I can tell if it's a window, if it's a wall, if it's a chair, which opens up a lot of possibilities, which is really nice. We do not have that, unfortunately, on WebXR yet, but we will, hopefully.
Okay.
The other tool is called Unreal Engine, which is a game engine, but it's a wonderful tool. It has a drag and drop kind of node-based way of developing. Also, Unity has that. But you can also write C++, which is very efficient.
Okay. So right along those lines, Matadal asks, what would you recommend on learning WebXR versus the Unity route? And what does the future of WebXR look like?
Uh-huh. That's a great question. I'm biased, obviously.
That's all right.
I'm a web person, and I want the web to happen as soon as possible. But because there are different vendors, like, Chrome has to implement it, Safari has to implement it, and we all have to decide on one format, which is not the case for HoloLens or Oculus, because they can use any format that they like. They don't have to ask anyone, right? So it's always going to come behind, but at some point, hopefully, that doesn't affect anything.
Okay.
It's nice to play with these tools like Unity and Unreal Engine, just to learn in the 3D interaction, the nature of augmented reality or virtual reality. And they're easy to play with, and they're fun. So I strongly recommend it. If you have the link to these lessons, I do have Unity lessons here too. Yeah, which you can do more stuff.
Okay. Very cool. So if I'm using Unity, do I have the ability to target both, let's say, Oculus and HoloLens? Or is it I'm writing for one and then I have to rewrite a bunch of code for the other?
It's very much like using, I think, React Native for mobile development. So you would pretty much, most of the things will be the same, but you have to do, like you have to build separately for different platforms. And also there are, some changes, there are things that you have to pay attention, but you can do it. And with Unity, you can even write it for WebXR, which is quite amazing. You can render it to WebXR.
That's very cool. Okay. All right. I'm curious. So, like for WebXR, so if I write that in Unity, I'm writing that in C#. That's now going to work in WebXR. Is that compiling that into JavaScript, or is it using? Why can I not think of the name of it? Is it WASM? WASM. Yeah. The WebAssembly.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I haven't played it, but browsers language is JavaScript, or now we can do WASM and stuff.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, but it's a great way to publish it to many other devices. Also, Android and iOS, they have amazing capabilities in terms of augmented reality, which wasn't there just a few years ago. One of my favorites is Google Maps. It tells you which direction you need to go to if you open the AR mode. And there are so many other things that we can use augmented reality. We just haven't thought about it yet.
I appreciate that. So one thing I'm curious about is how could I start to add voice commands and voice control into that AR MR experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the pretty much I have different libraries here: A-Frame, 3JS, and Babylon.js. They're different libraries, but they're doing the same thing. So that part really doesn't matter, whichever you choose. But I added the code samples here, so I'll show you your local device, and then so basically, all of these libraries, what you're doing is creating a scene, which is an object, adding a camera because you need to see things through the camera, adding a light, and adding objects and materials, most likely. And the WebXR part, Babylon.js or any other library makes it really easy for you to create these experiences without having to know anything about the WebXR Device API. And currently, the APIs are changing rapidly because we are still developing them. But cool thing about using a library, they do change things behind the scenes, but you're still using the same functionality, same functions for a long time, which is nice. You don't have to update anything.
Okay.
And this is it's all put together in an AR scene. So we have this. On top of it, what we need to do is npm install the cognitive services speech SDK. And we have a few other dependencies that I have. I just want to list them all. And I have some scripts to start the server and or the front end. And the server code is the one that we saw before. We're just creating an endpoint and then making the call to the endpoint. And the token, it's exactly the same. So I'm glad that you asked that. So we add all of those things, and all you need to do is to add the same events. Whenever somebody clicks on the microphone or approves the microphone, you start listening in, basically.
Okay. And so then from there, is it effectively then just listening on two separate events? So let's say that, and I'm not experienced. I'm trying my best to make sure that whatever it is I say here is correct. But like if I have a button that's like say floating here, and I click on that, and I also wanted to add a voice command to that would do whatever it is that's said on the button, like call home. Let's just go with that. So I could either click on that or I could say that. So behind the scenes, basically in my code, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm thinking that this would be analogous to like I'm creating an app, like I'm creating a Windows app, and I want to add a hotkey in for a button. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking for the hotkey and I'm looking for the button click, and both of those are going to point to the exact same method or the exact same function behind the scenes. Is that basically then what you're going to be doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yay!
And I mean, we can discuss the difference between how we are creating a comment, specific comment for things. So with speech, you can just like turn all of the speech into text, and then let's say if I want to change color, say change color, I can filter through it, right? But it won't be very effective. And with the custom comments, what you are able to do is give different options, because I might say change color, but you might say randomize color or make it my favorite color, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it becomes just another event whenever that command is being called. I am going to do that thing, and you can attach it to anything you like. Right? It could be your lights, it could be your objects. Oh, yeah, I've been having a hard time with the model. It has been training for some reason. Maybe it wasn't available in the region that I had. That might be the case.
So we've got about like 3, 4 minutes left, and I want to ask the question. I know you probably won't go into like full pricing details, and that's fine because of course that's going to vary. But I at least want to bubble up the question, and that is that Matadol asks: is that voice cognitive service free to use?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a free, there's a limit to the free one, version.
Okay.
And you can always get $300, I think, credit with the aka.ms cognitive services free.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing. And also, some of the things are more expensive than the other ones. And I actually, like, transcribing is much easier than trying to understand what a person is saying. And I'm sure this happened to you. People tell you all the time, like, oh, Google was listening to me. I was talking about this and that happened. I know that they are not because it's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is not very expensive to listen for a specific comment or a keyword, but trying to understand what people are saying is a totally different thing, which is we have a different service for that, language understanding, and that makes things more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like along those lines, with language understanding on those like custom commands and the custom keywords, I then don't need to do that type of processing. That all that it's going to be doing is like looking for those custom commands. So I don't need to go set up an NLP model if all that I'm looking for is turn out the lights or whatever my command happens to be.
Exactly. And
Okay.
you're going to treat it as a click event, and people can come and click on your holograms and buttons, or they can just say it. You are going to, do the same thing at the end of the event, which is
Okay.
really good. Yeah, which makes it easier for web developers. I think we can handle events.
Yeah, I would agree completely with that. I've dabbled a bit in natural language processing, and that's tough to do. It's really tough to do well. Even when you've got like really good services, just because there's so much variety in the ways that we can say things. So it's nice just to be able to go, hey, here's a custom command. Somebody could say this, a couple dozen ways, and then just be done with it from there. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad. Is there anything that you would build now knowing all of these tools?
The biggest thing, honestly, that I think I would love to go back and start to explore again is getting back a little bit more into chatbots, because like I said, earlier on, adding on voice was not something that we necessarily always did a lot of because of some various challenges. But now that I've seen a lot of this, it's like, oh, okay, I can definitely start to see a lot more use for this. And I'm also thinking about like PWAs or progressive web apps that we had Nitya on a while back. We need to bring her back again. She's amazing. But I'm thinking like PWAs, progressive web apps, which of course, effectively, and I'm oversimplifying, but effectively allows you to like write a web app and have that then be locally installed. And I'm just thinking, oh, that would be perfect then for like voice commands. So that way, if I'm, using Apple CarPlay, Apple Auto, whatever the Apple version of that is, I'm an Android person, so it's Android Auto in my world. But being able to then add on that voice command so someone could use my PWA safely as they're driving along, would be a really nice thing. So I'm immediately like thinking of those couple of scenarios and sort of daydreaming about, oh yeah, I could build this, I could build that. So yeah,
That's true. And our services are being used in cars a lot. And
that's
I don't know if you have time, but I have a secret way to use this actually for you specifically, just because you are doing this event. Sometimes a lot of people just come that I'm not sure how to pronounce their name, and what I do is just put it here, and then this is the content creation tool, and I can choose the language. So I'm gonna do this and choose the person to read this for me. Ayşegül. Yeah.
okay.
So whenever I'm not sure how to say someone's name, if I know their nationality, this is what I do when I'm doing live stream.
I really appreciate that. I'm gonna have to go check that out. So because like I have like a different but sort of like similar experience in going through life because I'm a Christopher, not a Chris, and so as a result, like of constantly not being called my name, it's made me far more aware of people who are not being called their name and not having their name pronounced correctly. So I'm like very acutely aware of that. So that's why I always like to ask and double check and make sure that that I'm getting that right. That is a really neat tool. I'm very glad that that you showed that off. And actually, yeah, somebody even commented that they now know how to pronounce your name because you've put that into the tool. So that's fantastic.
Turkish characters, but yeah, and it works for French, Canadian French versus French too. So very specific. I love it.
Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. Beautiful. Well, Ayşegül, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find more info if they wanted to keep digging and get started?
That's great. Thank you. We have the link, I think, for this Git book that you can always check out, and I constantly add more stuff. Also, this Friday, you can come on to AI Show Live, which is 11 a.m. PST. And I will continue working with the speech, and you can see the like how the code ends up.
That's perfect. Thank you so much again for joining. It's always a pleasure just to talk to you and just see what it is that you're building. You always really just get my imagination going, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, so that's what I want to do. And please, everyone, thank you for the questions. And if you build something, share it with us.
Yes, absolutely, and go follow Ayşegül on Twitter as well. Her Twitter handle is right there. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Sorry about the couple of bumps that we had along the way, but the show will be available on demand on YouTube. So check that out and check us out every Wednesday for Web Wednesday. So thank you for everybody for tuning in. Bye.